now that
We've built the house, now we can just live in it.
And you released your new album without a label in the US at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the total freedom that one always longs for or something? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, it's been a lot of years signed to record companies, and although they provided a lot of good support, just because, like, you know, we got signed up kind of in the early days. I mean, ultimately, you don't ever own your records. You know, there's no ownership involved with the artists that make it. So that's one exciting part of this release, is that we do own it, and we're taking control of how it's being released in the States. And then over here, we're using kind of more traditional means, just because every country has its own mechanism for doing things. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun, exciting time.
I just saw the film Singles again after many years. I was 15 when I came out, and it was strange because it seemed very long ago, but still very close. How did
you have any lines in Singles, or was it just Jeff?
I think I did. I think I had a couple.
I think Jeff. Back at that time, I mean, is it just gone and over, or is that time still a part of your lives?
It's kind of ancient history. I mean, I vaguely remember parts of it, you know, but...
I remember seeing it in the theater at the premiere, but I was absolutely hammered.
Oh yeah, I think I was too.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of Pearl Jam's constant struggle for, like, honesty and independence and you know, staying away of all these music industry things, and like to fight against the Ticketmaster and all that. Is that something that kept Pearl Jam going, not only in the early days, but somehow still does?
I mean, yeah, well, ever since I joined up in '98, I mean, I was super impressed just by how in-house everything is, and how much control the group actually really does have over their careers, which is pretty much the exact opposite of how a lot of groups at this level operate. So I think that's really enabled the group to have longevity and just feel good about, you know, like Eddie was saying, the house that we built. You know, it's been a long time coming, but the house is pretty radical right now, and we all really love living in it. And it's a lot harder to have this much control, you know, and so it's a real testament to how well we all get along, and how there's a real open lines of communication, and a lot of the decision making does come from the band. So there's a lot on the table for us. It's definitely a full-time job, even when we're not touring and playing live or making records. So there's more work because of it, but ultimately it pays off because we're able to present the group in a real honest way.
What do you associate with the term grunge? Does that mean anything to you, or is it a made-up word, or was it a movement, or what does it mean? Does it mean anything?
Grunge. Reminds me of being on a camping trip and having forgotten your toothpaste.
To me, of course, it was always lots of meaning with that.
Sure.
Like use and everything.
Sure.
The question is that just made up and put into my head, or by media, or by anyone, or is there actually something behind it?
Well, there's a history to the word, you know, and but what it ended up, you know, it ended up being a term that was applied to a lot of bands that you know, there's I think there's certain bands that you could say for us were more of that sound. It seems like Mudhoney's kind of the ultimate version of that, and like their first couple records. After that, you know, it feels like a word with a lot of baggage, and it's something that, like baggage, is stuff that you carry around. But then there's some good stuff in there if you take it out and spend the time to open it. You know, it was, you know, grunge was that term. That was really good for us, I suppose, because we ended up being lumped together with a bunch of other great bands as well, you know. But we were all really different, you know. Soundgarden was, you know, there were similarities, but crazily different than, you know, our band. And, you know, they took it to a level that we're still working on. You know, every Soundgarden record was a galvanized piece of, you know, it was a really focused vision and powerful records with no holes in them. And then you had Tad, and you had Screaming Trees, and you had Alice in Chains, and you had Gas Huffer, and you know, a lot of Sub Pop bands, and Fastbacks, and I don't know. Then it became kind of Northwest sound.
Well, the first actually, right, in Seattle at least. I mean, you've experienced it before, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Did something happen? And did something change?
I think it was just sort of an evolution of a really good Northwest music scene that has been there since the 60s, like with the Wailers and Sonics and everything like that. You know, it's the birthplace of Hendrix. Hart was from there. You know, I mean, there's just been a really cool sort of musical history in that region, and maybe it's just something in the air, something in the water that just created a unique musician. And there's water in the air. And there's also, yeah, well, there's other stuff too. But yeah, you know, luckily our local music scene, like in the late 80s, that was presented by Sub Pop, had a really sort of clear vision, you know, and I think it was easy to sort of promote that, especially here in Europe and the UK. As a thing, and I think that's what people sort of gravitated to initially, and then, you know, Nirvana just made it go through the stratosphere, so it was sort of like this perfect storm that happened, and but luckily there was a lot of really unique musicians, you know. I mean, there was a real concentration of, you know, uniqueness in that part of the world at that time. I mean, and actually there still is, you know, there's a lot of great Northwest bands coming out still to this day that sound nothing like we did in the 80s, you know. And luckily, you know, we're still going strong, and I think we're still evolving, you know, quite a bit. And I think that's always been the goal for great art, is just to keep evolving.
Do you think that the idea or the thing or the music was corrupted by the industry?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, a lot of groups sort of moved there in hopes of getting signed. I think the emphasis changed from why people wanted to play music in the first place. Like when we started, we just wanted to play music. You know, we wanted it to be our own thing. We wanted to forge our own sound. You know, so yeah, maybe it changed a little bit when the industry focus was all gravitating towards the Northwest. But once that went away, it settled down, and there's cool bands like Fleet Foxes and Death Cab for Cutie, and, you know. Yeah, I mean, so there's just still, you know, it's kind of come back to the reasons why it was good in the first place.